Alright lads, in this video I will show you what the exact metrics are that prove whether your cold email campaign is profitable or broken. I will also show you how you can diagnose and fix a failing campaign with a cognitive model that I use. It's highly effective and it's helped me basically problem solve and find ways to save a campaign and maximize the ROI. Hugely beneficial. And yeah, I'll also show how I applied this model to save a recent campaign that helped me book 4 calls in one day, which happened at the end of last week. And in the very last slide, I'll show you how even a bad cold email campaign can still drive a strong ROI. Please give this channel a thumbs up, give it a like, and yeah, please subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot and it will encourage me to create even more content. Right, so here is a high level overview of the 4 KPIs that you must monitor at all times in your cold email campaign. So the first one here, we have the open rate. Now, the open rate is a funny one because it's the least important metric that you want to monitor in your cold email campaign. I don't personally pay attention to it, and I'll tell you why in the next slide. And in fact, I'll go through each one of these metrics in more detail in the following slides, and I'll show you exactly what you need to look out for, what you need to be wary of, and potential fixes that you must make. But yeah, open rate, if you monitor them, you want to have at least a 50% minimum. Next one, we have the reply rate. You want it to be anywhere between 2 to 4%. Why do we want this? It's because it can give you a good idea about whether or not your emails are landing in the primary inbox and surpassing spam filters. And then you want a positive reply rate of anywhere between 0.25% to 0.5%. If you have a really strong campaign, it can go anywhere up to like 3, 4, 5, even to 10%, depending on how strong your offer and your scripts are. But a positive reply rate will give you a good indication about product market fit. And if you're selling something that the market actually wants to buy. Again, I'll dive into all the details here in just a second. And then ideally, you want your meeting book rate to be, well, anywhere between 2 to 4 calls per 1,000 prospects that you send cold emails to. If you can hit these numbers, then you've got a strong and scalable cold email campaign that will give you a strong ROI. So first, let's have a look at the open rate here. So yeah. This is a bit of a funny one. I personally don't monitor open rates because what happens is that if you monitor open rates, the cold email software tool that you use, for example, SmartLead, it attaches a line of code into each email. It's essentially a pixel. And when you send your cold email to Gmail or Outlook, they can both detect this pixel and it looks spammy, and there'll be a higher chance that your cold email will be deemed as spammy, so you've got a higher chance of basically your emails landing in the spam inbox. So you want to avoid this. I personally do not monitor the open rates. It's not important to me. It's, if anything, it's a vanity metric, and instead you can analyze the other metrics that I'm showing here to give you a better indication about whether or not you have a strong or weak cold email campaign. Then we have the reply rates. So reply rates, this will give you an indication about whether or not your emails are landing in the primary inbox. And the way that works is that if you have a reply rate of anything below 1%, the chances are that your cold emails are landing in the spam inbox, and you don't want that to happen. If you have anything between 1 to 2%, it could be a spam issue, or it could be that your scripts are really poor. So it is a little bit difficult here to gauge, but 1 to 2% you could be okay. You just need to refine and test additional scripts and see if you get a stronger response rate. If you have 2 to 4%, this is a really strong sweet spot and more realistic. Then you will definitely know that the vast majority of your cold emails are landing in the primary inbox. And then if you have anything above 4%, that could be absolutely excellent. It would probably indicate that you have a strong offer and a strong cold email strip with strong messaging that elicits some sort of response. It's probably going to be positive. Bear in mind here, when you send cold emails, even if somebody sends a response back saying no thanks, or if they even get a bit rude and tell you to fuck off, that's still fine in my eyes because it shows you that your emails are landing in the primary inbox. So yeah, you want to aim for anywhere between 2 to 4%. Get away from anything less than 1%. And if you have anything above 4%, you're absolutely flying. And then we have positive reply rate. So the positive reply rate basically helps you understand whether or not the market has validated your offer. If you have a positive reply rate of anywhere between 0.25% to 0.5%, the data is telling you that your cold email scripts are working, and that people are interested in what you're trying to sell them. So this is a really strong metric. It helps you understand and validate your offer. So what I tend to do is when I do cold email, and you write your different scripts in, say, for example, Smart Leads, if you do 3 different scripts, a good way, an effective way to kind of gauge the effectiveness of each script is to have a look at the positive response rate out of the amount of emails that you send. So if I have, say, for example, if one of my emails, if I send 500 of them and I get 1 positive response, that's a strong indicator that you're doing well and that this is an offer or a message that is resonating with the market. If you have 1 in 750, that's still pretty solid. It's not bad. You can maybe test and refine it, coming in with different angles within that original angle that you had sent the email out in. And then if you have only 1 positive response in 1,000, I would say that's not good enough. You want to go back to the drawing board and try and test different angles and maybe even retry the offer. But yeah, anywhere between 0.25% and 0.5%, and you're doing okay. And if you have a really strong killer offer with a really strong copy script, you can get anywhere between 4, 5 to 10% positive response rates. So keep an eye on this. And then, as highlighted previously, the meeting book rate, you want to aim for anywhere between 2 to 4 calls per 1,000 prospects that you send emails to. Bear in mind, I said 1,000 prospects. Do not get that mixed up with 1,000 emails, because you could send 2 emails to 1 prospect. So make sure that you're measuring it against the amount of prospects that you're sending to. And if you can reach this number, 2 to 4 calls, then you've got a highly scalable and profitable cold email campaigns. Okay, so what happens if the metrics in your cold email campaign are falling short against the benchmarks that I've just shared with you here? There is going to be a problem somewhere within that cold email system. And there's a lot of variables to look at. And the best way to approach this problem is to adopt a cognitive model called bottleneck thinking. So bottleneck thinking is something that is hugely effective and something that I have used throughout my time as a cold email. And it's a very efficient way to problem solve. So what it is firstly, you want to compare each metric against the benchmark. Look for the deficiency. If you have a poor positive response rate, then you've identified that is the problem. If it's a poor positive response rate, then you would know that it's probably not going to be a deliverability problem. Instead, it's going to be a problem with your scripts or your offer. So that would be the problem that you really need to laser in and find a specific solution to overcome that challenge. Now, here's some example. Here are 3 bottlenecks that you will probably find in your cold email campaigns. So let's go through them one by one. If your reply rate is under 2%, then you will know that it is probably going to be a deliverability problem. So if it's a deliverability problem, then there are multiple different ways that you can immediately address this and fix this issue. So it could be that you have not set up your SPF, DKIM, or DMARC records. These are absolutely mandatory technical requirements that you need to set up in your cold email campaigns before you launch. If you don't have them, you will almost certainly land in spam. Another trick that you can use is to make sure that you only use plain text in your cold emails. You don't want to have any hyperlinks, you don't want to have any signatures, and you don't want to have any images. So even just by removing all of these can be quick fixes that helps you solve the problem of having a weak reply rate. Now, if through bottleneck thinking, if you have identified that you have a weak positive response rate, then you will know that deliverability is probably not the problem, and it's more to do with your scripts and your offer. So you're selling something that the market is not interested in. So what you want to do is look at the scripts. You want to rewrite the scripts, think of new different angles, and maybe even think of a new offer. You basically need to split test these different variables and find something that sticks. Okay, now what do you do if you have a strong response rate and a strong positive response rate, but you're making less than 2 booked calls per 1,000 prospects? The bottleneck is probably going to be around your inability to follow up effectively, because if you have a strong enough response rate, you know that your emails are landing in the primary inbox. And if you have a strong positive response rate, then you have something that the market is interested in. You have enough people raising their hands saying, yes, I'm interested in this. But things that you need to really kind of push the outreach out, the follow-ups, I should say, to try and get people on a call. People might be busy, they might be distracted there and in that moment. You are the least important person in their day in that moment. So they might just genuinely forget about the email that you sent to them. So you really need to follow up. So you need to follow up aggressively, try and follow up every single day after the initial positive response. You can get creative with the follow-ups as well. You could send a really personalized Loom video highlighting their problems and how they can overcome their problems with your solution. You can connect and send them a DM on LinkedIn, or if you're feeling a little bit ballsy, you can even give them a phone call and try and book a meeting there and then. So here, there's a few tricks here that you can use to overcome these problems, but this all stems from the importance of bottleneck thinking. Okay, so last week I had launched a cold email campaign and it didn't go to plan. It wasn't generating enough leads. After 2 days, I could see that something was not right. I had only generated 1 lead out of 2,000 emails that I'd sent. I had written 3 different scripts coming at 3 different angles to test and see which one lands. At the time, I'd only sent 750 emails per script, and I only had 1 positive response. So clearly something was wrong. So using the bottleneck thinking method, I was able to identify what the problem was. I first looked at the response rate. I had 2.5% response rate, so I was good there. If it's not the response rate, I can assume that my emails are landing in the primary inbox. Then you go 1 level deeper, and I had a look at the positive response rate. Only 1 out of 2,000 emails sent. Okay, that's the problem. The market is rejecting my offer. The market is rejecting my scripts. They don't like it. They're not interested. So what I did was I went to the drawing board and I thought of 2 new emails coming at 2 different angles. And I just wanted to test it and see if it lands. And that's exactly what I did. So email D and email E were the new emails that I created. And as you can see, they've got a far higher positive response rate than the initial scripts that I had written. And because of the bottleneck thinking method, I was able to identify what was wrong with the cold email campaign, and I was able to provide a specific solution to overcoming that deficiency. And as a result, I've salvaged the campaign, and it's really exciting because I'm getting leads coming in every day. And I still have around 15,000 prospects to send. Now, here's the cool thing about cold email, is that even a bad email campaign can be wildly profitable. A typical campaign can cost you around $500. Worst case scenario, if you close only 1 client out of 4,000 prospects that you've contacted, you can still deliver a strong ROI. Considering that in the B2B space, B2B businesses charge anywhere between $2,000 to $200,000 or even a little bit more for their services. If you close 1 client out of 4,000 prospects, costing you $500 for the campaign, and you're securing a deal that is $2,000, you're still having a 4x return. Even a bad campaign can be highly profitable, so it's important that you keep that in mind. Anyway, that's the end of the video. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, and please can you subscribe as well. It gives me a lot more motivation to create more content that will help you create strong cold email campaigns that can generate leads for your business. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section below. And if you need a hand with any of your cold email campaigns, then send me a message in the links below. And we can give you our consultation. See you in the next video.